State of the Sun Devils with Jeremy Schnell, Jesse Morrison, and Damon Allred.
An Arizona Sports Podcast.
Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. We're joined by a very special guest, pregame and postgame host of the Sun Devils football team and women's play-by-play broadcaster, Jeff Munn.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be here.
Thanks
very
for
special
joining
guest
us.
indeed. We love Jeff.
No Jesse today. He'll be back on the next episode. Don't you worry.
Praying for Jesse in these hard times.
What?
But we're going to get into what's going on in the ASU football world. They just came out with the AP poll on Monday, gentlemen. ASU ranked 11th. We can look at where the other teams are ranked ahead of them. Mostly very, very similar to what the coaches poll was. Miami 10th, LSU 9th, Alabama 8th, Oregon 7th, Notre Dame 6th, Georgia 5, Clemson 4. So Clemson was 6th in the coaches poll. Now they're 4 in the AP poll here. Ohio State 3, Penn State 2, and Texas 1. So the AP poll is taking away a 1 versus 2 matchup in week 1 of the season.
You know what's interesting, and I heard Pat Forty, the college football writer who I think he's at Yahoo, say this might be the biggest season opening game in the history of college football. And I was racking my brain and I'm thinking, no, one has played 2 to open the season a bunch of times. In fact, in the 80s, they used to hold like a kickoff classic at Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands, and they would pair up 1 and 2. It is going to be obviously a massive game, but I don't think it's a game in the sense that, whoever loses is out of the picture. No.
It's 12-team playoff.
Yeah, there's a lot of
that.
time, and you still have that automatic way in through winning your conference.
Something that is interesting, though, is so many teams in the top 10 are playing in week 1.
Texas might be an underdog as a number 1.
Well, there's that, but it gives ASU a chance to jump into the top 10 in week 2.
Yeah.
They could be headed to SEC country as a top 10 team.
Yes, absolutely. And
I
Damon,
wouldn't be surprised.
Something that you pointed out on social media where they are ranked here at the start of the season is the highest preseason ranking since 1998 when they were ranked 8th, obviously coming off of that Rose Bowl appearance in 97, excuse me.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the history that has been brought up with this preseason ranking, not just for ASU. To go back to Texas for a second, they've never been ranked number 1 preseason before, which is astonishing considering the history of that program.
Especially how good they were in the early to late 2000s.
Right.
So.
The Vince Young teams.
Colt McCoy.
I'm old enough to remember when Darrell Royal was coaching there, and they had a stretch, I think it went in the late 60s, where they went 32-0. And never opened one of those seasons, 66, 67, 68, never opened it at number 1, which is just unthinkable.
So, Damon, when we look at this team and where they're ranked for ASU, Kenny Dillingham spoke about it at practice the other day.
Number 11 team should be able to fundraise the indoor facility pretty quick, huh?
There you go. But give me the feel of the team. They don't care, right?
They do not care.
Yeah.
They are not paying attention to any external noise, good or bad. It feels like that's been how it's been since early last season. This team has just been really good at shutting out the noise and really good at focusing on what's important to them, which is just what is happening today and what is my coach telling me, not what is some media poll telling me, whatever, things like that.
And Jeff, you see coaches try and instill that into their team a lot, but not many are able to really get through to the team to actually have that mindset. What do you think is different about Kenny Dillingham that he's able to get through to the team in that way?
First of all, I think it's that basic, he's a young coach and he connects well to student athletes. The other thing is his openness. I think it was either the second or third practice where he came over. It was one of those morning practices where they finish up the last 30 minutes in the bubble, and he came over and just said, we practiced lousy. And he said to the team, you want to be a 5-17? We can be a 5-17. And yeah, coaches will often say that in those circumstances, but there's a sincerity to Kenny, and he does connect with his players to when he says it, they're paying attention. So you're right. I think the most impressive thing, aside from the actual football, about the preseason practices this year, I was not in Tonazona, but the ones I've seen here, is that the vibe is very much the same. You don't get the feeling that they've read any press clippings. And Kenny's done a pretty good job of keeping the distractions out. The media is allowed into practice. Not a lot of other people get in there. I don't believe any national media, you'd know better than I would.
I haven't seen any.
They did a thing with Kenny before practices started. I know Reese Davis came out. But there hasn't been that much of a spotlight on them, even though they're ranked 11th. And it could be nationally that people are still not real sure. They may be assuming, no Cam Scatterbo, they're not going to be the same as last year. And they're overlooking the fact, no Cam Scatterbo, but we got Sam Levitt, we've got Jordan Tyson, on and on and on.
And
they
they
have 17 returners coming.
They have
starters.
3 running backs in that running back room. I would say 4 with Jason Brown, but they have 3 running backs in that running back room who are capable of carrying that type of workload if they were to give them the bulk of the carries that Scatterbo is leaving on the plate.
Right, and you guys talked about it. I listened to your podcast out of Tonazona after the scrimmage, and you made a good point. A diversity at the running back position may be a great thing for this team this year.
Sure.
Scatterbo was such an unstoppable force that you could have run up to the line of scrimmage and told the defense, we're giving it to Scatterbo, and he's going to go over the right side, and they still couldn't stop
It's
it.
the second half of the Texas game. That's
right.
exactly
and
what it was.
I think this year, because you do have such talent and such depth at the running back position, that not having a dominant back isn't really going to hurt him that much. You still, if you're an opposing defense, you've got to be aware of the ability of Levitt to go downfield to not only Tyson, but he's got a lot of depth at the wideout position.
Jaron Hamilton's making a lot of big plays lately.
Right. I've heard you guys talk about that too. And he can't, an opposing defensive coordinator cannot load 8 guys up in the box and say, okay, we shut down the run, we've shut them down. That's not going to work.
The diversity of each running back too and how they're different from each other. The way Kyson Brown kind of presents the all-around look, the way Kanye Udoh is more of the heavy set type of bruiser will smash mouth football. Raleek Brown and what he can do at anywhere on the field, and then guys behind that also having diverse skill sets as well. I feel like all of that will play together really well.
Yeah, and it's the other part of it is you have so many players coming back that I think that too, especially in this day and age where most any collegiate program in any sport, you come to the first practice of the year and you're asking who's on this team. You don't have that problem quite to that degree with Arizona State football, and I think that's going to make a tremendous difference, especially at the beginning of the year.
The amount of familiar faces, just even spring camp, it did feel good to come back and kind of see so many of those same players. It didn't feel like a different team at all, culture-wise or personnel-wise.
I want to finish up on this on the AP poll. It's something that me, you, and Jesse talked about, Damon, last week about the coaches poll. There are 3 teams ranked ahead of ASU that did not make the playoff last year. Now, SMU is ranked below them, who did make the playoff. SMU, Indiana, as well as Boise State are behind them. They did make the playoff last year. But why do you think that is? Why do you think Miami, LSU, and Alabama are ranked ahead of them?
I think preseason polls are so much based on reputation. Miami with Mario Cristobal, you figure they're going to be a national contender.
Carson Beck coming in.
The love that Clemson has got. I mean, a year ago, people were talking as if Dabo Swinney had lost his fastball. Now, all of a sudden, they're ranked 4th. That's got a lot to do with Dabo Swinney. Some of the other programs.
LSU.
LSU's one. I'm not at all impressed with LSU. They're going to open with Clemson. If they lose that game, first of all, Brian Kelly's seat is in flames. Secondly, that could have a tailspin effect. So I think a lot of it is reputation. And I do think that in terms of, and I know UPI is the coaches poll. UPI went bankrupt like 30 years ago, Jeff. Wake up. But the coaches poll, I'm certain a lot of people in that poll are just looking at ASU and say, well, Cam Scatterbo's gone.
Still, ranking them 11th is some sort of respect.
It is a great deal of respect when you consider, obviously. We had a meeting yesterday at the Sun Devil Radio Network, and I was pointing out to our friend Sean Crespin, I said, we were trying to get a sense of what the pregame show will be like opening night against NAU. And I just put this out there for the group. I said, does anybody remember what we were thinking about or talking about last year on opening night? And we kind of felt like, well, Graham's debuting as AD essentially. He's emphasizing fan experience. There's a tremendous vibe. We didn't really, it's hard to remember where we thought this program was a year ago. Yeah. Now you look at it and I think people, it is a show of respect, but I do see programs ahead of ASU that you say, okay, put them on paper. ASU's probably better than they are.
It's crazy where we were a year ago to now.
We weren't even doing our pregame show yet.
No, and where we are now as a ASU podcast, we're not talking about how this team is going to be. The biggest question mark on this team is the center position, right?
Yeah.
And which is crazy to think about because there's so many question marks going into last season.
And last year, center was the only question mark there wasn't.
You're right. But it's a big position, don't get me wrong, but we're not thinking like, oh, how good is Sam Levitt going to be? Is he going to be the next guy for ASU? Like, is Jeff Sims going to take over, at all? We're not thinking about the big positions as quarterback, wide receiver, corner, anything like that. We're thinking about the center position.
Yeah, but center is obviously an important position.
Huge.
And I
heard
you guys
Levitt
talk about this. Yeah, I heard you guys talk about this at Tonazona, that they obviously want to run out of the shotgun with Levitt. They don't want him under center. If you've got a center that you're not quite as confident in getting snaps back out of the shotgun, you're going to have to play Levitt up at the line of scrimmage. Yeah. Does that make a big change in the way Marcus Arroyo runs the offense? I would think so. And so that does become a really important position. And it sounds like the race to see who's going to be the center has turned into kind of a toss-up at this point.
Yeah, it's between Ben Coleman and Wade Helton. Wade Helton is the Iowa State transfer. He came in late in the last window, correct, Damon?
Yeah, he wasn't around for spring camp. I think he transferred like a week or two right after spring camp, and so missed out on all that valuable time, especially as a center when you're making calls and things like that.
He's coming over with his brother Brent as well. Mm-hmm. But so how has he looked? If you have to, make a pick at this point, would you say he's got the job right now?
Yeah. So going back to Camp T, when this first started to become a real issue, we feel like because of some bad snaps during the scrimmage.
Ben Coleman is in great offensive alignment.
Oh yeah.
Center might not might not be his position.
Yeah, if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades from last year, Ben was a top among ASU blockers in run blocking and within like the margin of error for pass blocking as well. And so if center and snapping is going to be something for him where he's thinking less about blocking because of how much he's having to think about the snapping, which appears to not be going as well, that's, I think, taking away from how good he can be as a blocker. And so I think it might just be, Kenny talked about this term, the best five on the offensive line, which I think is very important. I don't know that you're getting your best five if you don't have Ben Coleman at left guard. And so what we've seen with Wade Helton is when he's taking these first-team reps, it has been Ben back at left guard, and Wade is there in the middle, and he's getting snaps. And by all accounts, every snap we've seen from Wade Helton has been on par with what you're looking for out of centers. It's just been those situations where Ben Coleman's been back at center, and then you have like Jameto Abigbo over at left guard sometimes, and he's had some false start issues as well. So I think to me, if you're asking me to make a pick right now, it's Helton just because of the consistency he brings as a snapper and how that allows the other four around him on the offensive line to just slide back to where they were for most of 2024.
I think that's a great point because you talk to football coaches and you ask them what's the most important position on your offensive line, especially with a right-handed quarterback. They're all going to say left guard. So if Coleman has the most value at left guard, then if it's, the old football adage, George Halas, the Bears owner and coach, used to say the best players play. Mm-hmm. Okay, the best position for Ben Coleman even now appears to be left guard, and it is very important. So maybe that's the way Kenny goes, just based on Coleman's ability at left guard, and if Helton proves to be really confident and solid at snapping out of the shotgun.
And the important thing here to note is that it has only been 2 days so far of Helton snapping. At Camp T, it was Makua Pule who went into that spot. It looked good from Pule as well, but he was back to doing mostly with the third team on Monday and Tuesday. And so I think we're going to see more tonight, actually. There's a night practice Wednesday, and we'll be able to see a little bit more of those reps, hopefully. And, I think go from there. There's obviously still a few weeks to go till game week, and this is definitely the biggest thing that needs to be ironed out from my point of view.
I mean, you look at the first half of that Texas game, Jeff, and you look at how much Sam was running around.
Right.
Offensive line is a key to this season. If they can't block in front of Sam, it's going to be difficult for him to find guys out there.
Exactly. And if there are questions at center, where is the pressure coming from? Up the middle. And that's going to force Sam to move left or right. And you'd much rather keep him stationary to find the open receivers. He's like, and it's simplistic to say, but they just need to buy Sam about 3 seconds. And if they do that, he's going to find Tyson. He's going to find any one of his wideouts. And that offense becomes infinitely more effective.
Precisely.
Damon, anything injury-wise, injury report that, not concerning, but just that's on people's radar at the moment?
Something that's on my radar is the fact that the Big 12 will be doing mandatory injury reports going forward. They've finally joined the club with the other power conferences, and they're going to start to issue injury reports. This will play out in a way where the week of any game between two Big 12 teams, 3 days in advance of kickoff, there will be the first injury report. And then 2 days before, there will be another. And then 1 day before, another. And then the final one 90 minutes before kickoff. And so these nice daily kind of updates will be able to be a lot more transparent as far as what to expect on game day. Obviously, this is big for the people who are into gambling. I would not count myself among them. But, just for the transparency to be out there.
It helps with the broadcasters.
It helps with the broadcasters, too.
And where are our priorities, gentlemen?
Yeah. We should be catered to, of course.
This is the Tim Healy rule, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to put it on his big sheet of players, right?
Yes.
Basketball, there will be reports the night before of any men's and women's game as well. And so it'll be nice to just have this transparency. Kenny Dillingham, the week of the Utah game, I don't know if you guys remember how uncertain Cam Rising's status was for that game.
Right.
And Kenny said that week he would be in favor of mandatory injury reports and the transparency that comes with that. But at the time, he also said Kyle Whittingham was totally right to keep it vague and keep it uncertain so that ASU had to plan for more than just Cam Rising. And so I think that for it to finally be something that's instituted, I think is a very good thing for all parties.
If I just slightly change the subject, I'm just going to get this in real quick. We were talking about the rankings. In relation to the Big 12, you mentioned Utah. Nobody's talking about Utah. And there's a part of me that thinks there's no way Kyle Whittingham's going to put up a 6-win season again.
Right.
No way.
Especially with the quarterback coming in from New Mexico and
Right.
originally from here, Scottsdale, Devon Dampier, and bringing his New Mexico offensive coordinator with him, they should be able to pick up right where they left off.
Exactly.
And he was the most productive rushing quarterback not at a service school, or service academy, excuse me. And so Utah should definitely be one of the biggest threats in the Big 12, I feel like.
I mean, the top 3 teams receiving votes outside of the top 25, BYU, Utah, Baylor. 3 Big 12 teams.
Yeah.
And that's right after there being 5 teams right on the cusp of the top 25 on the inside, too.
Correct. So, yeah, if they don't have to just be waiting around for Cam Rising all year. They can build their offense around whatever quarterback they choose to go with. It's going to be an interesting team to look out for. ASU, obviously the Big 12 champions, and a team that we follow, but a team that we've known very well for the better part of over 2 decades now is Utah as well.
Yeah, and in relation to how the things look in the conference, and I know a lot of people were amused when the Big 12 said we're not doing a preseason poll this year. But I understood it. In a 16-team conference, it's next to impossible to even come to an educated guess as to how 16 teams will line up. And especially in this conference, because there is no one dominant program.
You basically last year you could basically flip everything over, and that's what it looked like at the end of the season.
You remember the last week of the season when ASU was down playing the Territorial Cup, the Big 12 had set up a webpage with all the tie-breaking scenarios.
Oh, this was a nightmare.
If this happens, this will happen. And
if ranch dressing falls on a wing, as Kenny put it.
And we were literally updating it that day, the day of the U of A game. I wasn't doing it myself. I was doing it in pregame, halftime, and as much as we could postgame, because I think one of the critical games was at night, and we weren't going to know. So my
I think
point
they found
is,
out on the bus back from the Territorial Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my point is, this is still, while Arizona State, if you were to take a poll, I think most people would say, yeah, Arizona State should go into the season as the favorite in the Big 12. It's not, it's going to be, again, a real scramble, which makes every game critical.
You know why they should be the favorite is team chemistry. They're bringing back a lot of guys. Listen, Texas Tech, they're bringing in a lot of guys, so we need to see it on the field, and they could be the second best team, the best team in this conference. We won't know yet until we see them on the field. We've seen proof of concept with this ASU team.
Right.
Chemistry-wise, how important will that be to this season?
I think the fact that they're bringing so many players back, and so many of these players have bought into, they haven't come here saying, okay, I'm going to play for a year and boost my draft stock. How many scouts are watching me today at practice? Most everybody that I've encountered has invested in what this program is about, and they're here not for individual goals, but for team goals.
Yes.
And we talked before the podcast started about Tonazona. In a day and age where there is so much movement because of the portal, because of NIL money, if you've got a setting where you can take players and basically cut them off from all distractions, even just for 3 days, that gives you such an advantage over so many other programs. I mean, let's just look around down in Tucson. Arizona doesn't have a setting like that. And I think you guys were saying about how much national attention is coming to Camp T, but yet Camp T's been there for, 60 plus years?
Three-quarters of a century at this point.
Yeah. And the other thing that, just as a side note about Camp T, because I'm old enough to remember this, almost every coach that followed Frank Kush, if they brought him in from the outside, Darryl Rogers came from Michigan State, John Cooper from Tulsa. When they would bring in a coach from the outside, they'd tell him about Tonazona, and everyone would say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting my players in a bus. Then they would put that coach in a car and drive them to Payson to see Tonazona, and they go, oh, okay, I like it. Dennis Erickson was like that. I think Todd Graham tried to mask that he wasn't all that crazy about Tonazona until he got up there. Mm-hmm. And every one of them, Darryl Rogers, John Cooper, Dirk Cutter was like, Tonazona, no. But then they do it, or they see it, and they love it. And I think when you talk about team chemistry, it's a little thing to some people, but I look at it as a very big thing, because even the best programs, I don't care if it's Ohio State, Clemson. Obviously, Clemson had to bring in a lot of talent to go from Nowheresville to a top 5 preseason ranking. That group's got a mesh. This isn't basketball with just 5 guys on the floor all the time. Yeah. You got a big job getting everybody on the same page. And between the 17 returning starters and that whole experience of Camp Tonazona, I think that gives ASU such an incredible advantage.
I think one of the biggest things, too, with team chemistry is when we had CJ Fight on after Camp T, he was telling us that a lot of it comes down to the confidence that he has in the guy next to him, and how playing with most of that defense is exactly the same as it was last year. Playing with that group last year and under the same parameters of what they're emphasizing as far as culture, everyone knows that they're all bought in, and so the security of knowing that the guy next to you is bought in and you have to be bought in, everyone is just doing the same exact 1/11th, as CJ Fight put it.
I will pose a question to the group. I think one of the other things that I've been watching at camp through the practices is Brian Ward going to tweak anything defensively? Will he blitz more and allow his secondary to be in man coverage in a lot of situations? He didn't do it that much last year.
Did it at the wrong time.
Yeah, and a lot of it was based on he didn't want to expose that secondary to man situations. But I think to myself, he's got enough players coming back on this defense. Would he be more willing in certain situations to send the house?
It's so interesting you bring that up because just yesterday I asked him about, how the defensive back depth looked so improved from last year and how that might provide room for you to go through the two deep in game as much as you were with the defensive line and linebackers. And Coach Ward told me that you don't really want to do that with the secondary where you're cycling through guys. He likes the five that are out there, I think. And at this point, it looks like the starting group will be Keith Abney, Javen Robinson, X. Alford, Miles Rouser, and then it looks like Kindred Breedlove is winning the nickel battle as well. Mm-hmm. And so it looks like those five will be the group. And my goodness, to a man, the man coverage that is coming from Keith Abney and Javen Robinson this fall is amazing. I think that those two have been so physical and they have just stuck to the receivers to the point where it has been maddening for the receivers at times. And like I've seen Malik McClain get frustrated with the handsiness and Jordan Tyson get frustrated. And that's just because of the level that these guys are bringing on the defensive end.
You're right. And how many catches have we seen in practice so far of guys that are making circus catches because there's a DB right in their face?
It feels like every catch is contested and every not catch is because of good coverage.
Which is going to be good once we get into football season, into actual regular season games, because hopefully for these guys, they will have faced their best opponent in practice.
Exactly.
Keith Abney's not going to face anyone like Jordan Tyson throughout the regular season.
That's true. that goes without saying. And yeah, you would prefer, or you would like, and they'll get the chance starting August 30th to line up against somebody other than their own teammates. But when you're that deep and you're that talented, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're not going to see anybody, and no disrespect to NAU, but there's nobody they're going to throw out there that's going to be any tougher than what those guys have seen for the last 3 weeks.
No, not at all. No. The iron sharpening iron with this team is a crazy facet to me.
All right, Jeff. First 4 games of the season. We got Northern Arizona, Mississippi State, Texas State, and Baylor. What are you looking for from this team to get off to a good start?
Well, if we remember last year, a number of games, the offense started slowly. Mississippi State was one of them. And they came out in the second half of a lot of those games, made adjustments, and just blew past their opponents. But I know, obviously, the coaches don't want to be in that position consistently. So what I'm looking for, and again, no disrespect to NAU. My dad graduated from NAU, and even though he's left this earth, he still has ways of getting me by the neck. I would expect the offense to come out and get points on the board early against NAU, get the game under control. Then you get into, I don't know why the Mississippi State game scares me.
It's just
Is it the Starkville
it's
of it?
an away
it's
game. It's
Stark
an SEC.
Vegas,
yeah.
And it's an
SEC.
SEC. I know that they were picked dead last in the SEC. It's an SEC team on the road. I don't know why a team that does have the kind of chemistry ASU has and the mental toughness would be bothered by that. Actually, my guess is Kenny Dillingham will use it as a positive. But that game concerns me, unless we forget Texas State is a really strong mid-major program. Yeah. 2 years ago, they're in a bowl game. The game there last year was a battle.
On a Thursday.
Yeah, it was a Thursday night ESPN game, and it wasn't easy. So that game will be a challenge as well.
And a bit of a revenge game, or revenge factor in that game, not only because of last year's matchup, but because Texas State has ASU defensive line transfer J.P. Dieter.
That's right.
That's a fun little tidbit.
That's right. Yeah. And then the Baylor game, which is obviously the conference opener, that's another one that people aren't talking a lot about Baylor.
At Baylor.
Yeah, so, but it's in Waco.
You have to go to Waco.
And that's an underrated place to play college football.
It's a beautiful stadium.
Brand new stadium, and they get great fan support. And to me, that too is I'm not going to use the word trap game because Baylor's better than that, but it's a scary game in a lot of respects. And I think one of the things that Kenny Dillingham is going to have to remind his players, and frankly, a lot of us, is, we lost a conference game last year, and we still managed to win the Big 12 title, but we lost 2 conference games. You can't expect to do that again. You can't expect to have a 2-loss conference schedule and end up in the title game. So you can't take a week off against a Baylor or, anybody in this conference. No. So it makes the Baylor game. I have said that I really think the meat of ASU's schedule is in November. That doesn't mean that they don't have challenges September and October, but I really think you look at the way November breaks down at Iowa State, could very well be a preview of a rematch in the Big 12 title game. Then they're home for West Virginia, and I think West Virginia, because of Rich Rodriguez, we know all about the antics, the sideline behavior, but the man can coach. And I think they're going to be a much better football team. Then you go to Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado is another wild card this year.
Apparently, people are saying there's some rumors that their young 17-year-old quarterback can't get off his phone.
Oh, is he the one?
There's some rumors.
Huh.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that today.
It's just rumors. I don't know if it's true or not.
It was
I don't want to slander the kid.
ESPN show. I heard that this morning.
Yeah.
And
Lewis, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
we're all
Juju.
glad that Coach Prime has recovered from cancer.
Oh, absolutely.
But you just wonder to yourself, I wonder, is this going to dull his energy level
I doubt it.
Not having his
Yeah.
sons.
for coaching?
I
And
doubt
that
it.
too,
He
he doesn't have
seems-
his sons there.
Yeah, he just seems like the type of guy that would just be.
I give him
reaching
credit.
through it.
Yeah.
It would have been real easy for him to leave Colorado
Oh,
at the end of
absolutely.
last year after a
I thought he
10-win
would.
season and
Thought
an
he would.
Alamo Bowl appearance. I would have thought the NFL would have come calling.
Yeah.
The fact that
The
he's
Cowboys'
still there.
job.
Yeah, and I think we could do a whole podcast on why it ended up in Dallas, but I really the people who looked at him going to Colorado and saying, it's a novelty act, he's not going to be there very long. Well, I don't think that many people are saying that now because it appears, yeah, his sons are gone, Travis Hunter's gone, he's still there, so he's obviously committed to it.
It's a tough schedule. Obviously, they don't have to play Kansas this year. They don't have to play
Kansas State is the other big miss.
Kansas State this year. What was the other one that they're not playing?
They don't play UCF, right?
Cincinnati.
Don't play UCF.
or UCF. So
Yeah, Cincinnati being the team that beat them last year.
yeah, so there are teams that they're not playing, but they're teams that the teams that they are playing are still very formidable opponents, and it's going to be difficult. Myself, Damon, and Jesse are going to do our season predictions in a couple weeks, but Jeff, I just wanted to get your opinion on the early part of the season, and I think
They'll be-
it's important that first 4 games.
They'll be favored in each one of those games. Each one of them brings a challenge. NAU's not a bad program, but they
Top
are in
20
the
in
Big
FCS.
Sky. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so you expect ASU to take care of business.
I mean, they're no Montana State, but
No, and I've been in Montana the week of that game, and let me tell you something.
Brawl of the Wild. That's what they call it.
I love that nickname.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
beautiful.
that nickname. We were up there playing women's basketball 2 years ago
I
or
remember
3
that.
years ago
Yeah.
when game day went there.
Oh, awesome.
Every time I got in a cab or an Uber while we were there, we were only there for 48 hours. We're playing a basketball game and we're getting out of there. Every time I got in a vehicle, a guy would ask me, "Are you with ESPN?" So finally, I was going to lunch the day of the game, and I get in an Uber, and the guy says, "You with ESPN?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Kirk Herbstreit." And I said, "Do I get a free fare?" He goes, "No." And I said, "Well, then it doesn't matter."
Anyway,
Then he's
Jeff,
not Kirk Herbstreit.
No.
Speaking of women's basketball, how has this offseason been for the team, for you observing? What have you seen?
I'll take it in 2 different directions. I think they've done a really good job restocking the roster with talent. But the thing that has impressed me the most, they had workouts in June and July. They will resume the first day of the new semester, which is the next week, next
week.
Thursday.
Yeah.
The thing that has impressed me, and I have to be careful about this, I love Natasha Adair, and she and I got to be very good friends, and I wish her and the entire staff nothing but the best. But I've seen more teaching going on in these practices. Molly, and it's not just Molly Miller, Jason Glover, Deja Bernard, Abby Olajuwon, the entire staff has really, they're digging in and teaching. There was a day early in this practice schedule where Molly was showing the team the proper way to take a charge. And she explained in very detail, the reason you do this is not only to get the call, but to cut down on the risk of injury. And there are things that I just had not heard out of a practice in a long time. They brought over something that looked like a tackling dummy one day, and they used it to show players the proper way to move your opponent out of the way when going for a rebound. So this has been a really, I'm so impressed with the teaching that's going on.
It's great.
They've done a really nice job. I think everybody is going to be really impressed. I made the comment on Twitter early in the practice schedule. They always say offense sells tickets. This might be the first time that defense sells tickets because people are going to come in and see the way that they defend the floor all 94 feet.
Love that.
They create turnovers and they get in transition. The non-conference schedule drops next week, so I'm not allowed to tell you specifics. But there is a nice mix of challenging games and games they should be able to handle. I think, I really believe, and the other thing is they have made such an emphasis on conditioning.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to take even a day off from conditioning.
Good.
So I don't anticipate the rash of injuries that we had the last few years. If this team stays relatively healthy, I think they're in a good place going into conference play. Big 12 women's basketball is a lot like Big 12 football. There really is just one great team, and it's TCU. After that, pretty well wide open.
And they lost a lot of players this summer.
Yeah, and I think there's an
to graduation
opportunity
and to the draft and stuff like that.
to move up. How high? It's hard to say. This team, as it's constructed right now, does not have a great deal of size. But if you remember, a lot of Charlie's teams did not have a dominant post player, and they still out-rebounded a lot of teams, and they still defended really well.
And they got some size coming in still because Martina Fantini
Right.
had been with the Italian U20 team where she won bronze.
She's been doing great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was like a 16, 8, and 4 game that she
Right.
had. Mm-hmm.
Right. And they've done the staff has done a phenomenal job getting out, establishing connections. And the other thing I'll just say briefly, I had the good fortune to interview Molly the day that her hiring was announced, and I said this before she was hired. If it's Molly Miller, she'll be a rock star at ASU from the second she steps on campus. And that's the way it's played out. She's been invited to a number of activities to start the semester, and she just got there.
She was at Camp T.
And she was at Camp T.
She was.
I really believe there is a breath of fresh air that's going through this program. The fan base seems very energized. Okay, we can't be too impatient. This is going to take a little time because she's...
That's what we said. That's what we said about Kenny Dillingham. though.
Well, but the reason I say that is because the philosophy is changing. Under Natasha Adair, offensively, we're going to try to outscore you.
Yes.
We're going back to where we were under Charlie Turner-Thorne, where defense is going to create everything.
Yeah.
All coaches try to do it with
Defense
defense.
leads to offense.
But that's going to take a little time. I will say, I know we got to wrap this up. The 4 returning players have all been very productive in the practices. That doesn't necessarily mean, Michaela Moore is going to play 30 minutes or Jaya Levette's going to start. But I've noticed that they are doing things in these practices that they were not doing the last couple of years.
Yeah. This has been great. Jeff, thanks
It's great
so much.
to see you guys.
Yeah.
We always love having you.
Now, you're going to do your pregame before our pregame again this year. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
So at home games, you'll be in the Santan Ford Club.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then we'll preempt you here in the studio.
We'll give you a nice,
Preempt.
we'll warm the seats.
I'll bring the pizza, by the way. I did have that confirmed
goodness,
this week. Yeah.
Just
Thank goodness.
None of that Detroit style anymore.
No, it's sponsor pizza. It's Venezia's. We don't mind
No
mentioning
payola here on the podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of State of the Sun Devils. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can find us on all forms of social media at AZ Sports Devils. You can find all of Damon's articles on the Arizona Sports app and arizonasports.com.
Presented by Y-Refi.
For Damon Allred, I'm Jeremy Schnell. Thanks so much to Jeff Munn for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.